Chapter 1695. It was a stinky underground sewer. There was dirty black mud everywhere, the smell was disgusting, it was similar to the rotten smell of animal corpses, and the gloomy environment was like the legendary underworld. Boom, boom, boom. The ground trembled, and many cracks appeared on the solid floor. A huge hole appeared, and the bright sunlight shone in. Those two guys really know how to choose the place. There was a sound wave in the quiet atmosphere, followed by Saber's light voice. Compared to this, I'm more concerned about how they survived here. Dustless touched his chin and looked curious. He sniffed slightly, the rotten smell made it difficult to breathe. That makes sense. Saber nodded, Castor and his master could survive in such a harsh environment. Castor and his master were amazing. But, Dustless's right eye changed, and a mysterious blue and white eye appeared. He could see through the boundless darkness, and the scene in the distance could be seen at a glance. According to Ceci's information, this seems to be the location of Castor's magic workshop. There should be a big harvest. Saber said with an expectant tone. There is a big harvest, but the result may be the opposite of what you think. Dustless looked at Saber with a deep look, then he shouted, "Fire release, great fireball technique." Boom, boom, boom. The huge fireball rushed out, and the originally dark and strange environment was instantly lit up, and the shocking scene was also reflected in Saber's eyes. Damn it, how can he do this kind of thing? Castor, that bastard, why didn't his master restrain that crazy guy? Saber clenched her fist and cursed, her voice was trembling. Looking around, there were countless children's corpses. You let Castor's master restrain him. Saber, with all due respect, Yu Xinglong Jijia's level of perversion is no worse than Castor's. They are very close, just like lovers. As a transmigrator, Dustless knew that both of them were perverted murderers. Ouch! A hoarse roar suddenly rang out, accompanied by a violent tremor. In that instant, the entire Dongmu city trembled slightly. Even though the fluctuations were minuscule, Dustless still managed to catch them. Follow me, Castor is on the sea. Dustless flashed and appeared in front of Saber in the next second. Ignoring her shocked expression, he grabbed her slender waist and leaped into the air. Everything happened too quickly. By the time Saber regained her senses, she found herself in the sky with Dustless. Saber, who was being hugged by Dustless, blushed slightly. Her body temperature was rising rapidly, and her cheeks were burning hot. She clutched the corner of her shirt tightly, looking as if she wanted to say something but stopped herself. She looked extremely nervous and awkward. This is the first time I've been carried in the air by someone. It feels pretty good. Saber lowered his head and looked at the entire Dongmu city. The void behind Gilgamesh rippled, and countless divine weapons flashed. When they were about to attack the sea monster summoned by Kstur, there was a sudden change. Ow, ow, ow. An even more ferocious voice suddenly sounded. A monster wearing black armor and a helmet with red light flashed. He was standing on a fighter jet and had launched 2 missiles while Gilgamesh and the sea demon were fighting. Boom, boom, boom. The aircraft driven by Gilgamesh suffered heavy damage and splashed a huge fireball, which was particularly spectacular. TSK, why did the Hero King do this? Dustless shook his head when he saw it. He clearly saw that Gilgamesh fell into the black stinky sea. He was afraid that this guy's lungs were about to explode. Looking closely, there were more than thousands of noble artifacts. That damned imposter. Seeing this, Hero King Gilgamesh wanted to cry. He found that the way others looked at him had changed, as if the ability of the Gate of Babylon was stolen by him from Dustless. If this guy really has the same ability as me, then he can definitely use that. Gilgamesh's old face was incomparably gloomy. His own unique move had been played by someone else so skillfully. He felt particularly uncomfortable in his heart. However, the next scene also confirmed Gilgamesh's conjecture. Buzz, suddenly, a dazzling light swept out of the void, and a strange spiral sword slowly floated out of it. At the moment when the big sword flashed, the void was filled with an indescribable ominous feeling. Even Dustless had not made a move, the sky had already broken. Is this your real noble artifact? Dustless. Saber stared at the ominous blade, and she also felt an unprecedented destructive power and a huge sense of oppression. This strange sword was even more powerful than her Excalibur. Noble artifact. Kind of. The star of creation, Anomalish, has the ability to break the world. Staring at the huge sea monster in the distance, its horrible shadow flashed and kept coming to the shore, intending to destroy the entire Domu city. Castor. You and Joan of Arc will meet again in the next life. Glancing at the sea monster, Dustless indifferently waved a huge light, annihilate him, Boom. The huge slash whistled out, and in an instant, the vast sea was split open, and the slash rushed straight to Satyr. Whoosh. The sharp slash made a horrifying sound as it tore through the air, causing people to feel dizzy. Even the ordinary people who rushed over after hearing the sound were unable to withstand the powerful pressure and had their eardrums shattered. Damn, it's so strong. Castor, who was hiding in the huge sea monster, looked at the light of destruction, and his back was cold, and he quickly controlled countless tentacles to block it. Poochie. However, the dying struggle was useless, the tentacles were crushed by the strong hurricane and turned into a drizzle, powerlessly sprinkling on the sea. Boom. The dazzling slash finally pierced through Satyr, destroying it in one move. Its huge body instantly exploded. Chapter 1697. Boom boom boom. Castor's huge body exploded, it was spectacular, the whole sky was occupied by the fragmented body fragments, slowly falling, it was no different from a fine drizzle. It's that simple. Sarvant, who recovered from the shock, looked at the duo of Dustless and Saber with a speechless face. Of course, the main focus of their attention was still the calm Dustless. Especially when the hero king was Gilgamesh. When this fellow saw Dustless take out an EA that was identical to his eyeballs nearly popped out. Hey, hey, hey. Golden Glitter Archer over there, I have something to ask you. Conqueror King Iskandar drove the Wheel of Divine Power to land next to Hero King Gilgamesh and asked, how did you steal that guy's ability? You bastard, get away from this king. Gilgamesh was about to explode when he heard that. Gate of Babylon was his unique ability. Now, Dustless could use it inexplicably. Not only that, but he, the real one, was also treated as a fake. In fact, it was not only Ryder who thought so, the rest of the masters and Sarvant had the same idea. When Golden Glitter used Gate of Babylon for the first time, it was destroyed by Berserker, but now Dustless showed the true strength of Gate of Babylon, it was no wonder that everyone was daydreaming. Well, I will find a chance to let you witness the gap between a fake and a real one. Hero King Gilgamesh snorted angrily, and left, he was very angry with today's battle. Enosaka's mansion. Kiri, our plan needs to be modified, the 8th hero is very strong, I used to think that Gilgamesh was the strongest, but now it seems that I was wrong. Enosaka Toshimi's face was full of decadence, and his eyes were full of unwillingness. Yes. Judging from the battle just now, Gilgamesh may not be his match. Yen Feng Chili maintained his composure. But only this time, he looked at Enosaka Toshimi's eyes, there was a strange light, like a hungry beast, no one knew what he was thinking. Kiri, I have something for you, Pucci. Suddenly, Yen Feng Chili attacked. He didn't give Toshimi a chance to finish his words. He used a dagger to end Toshimi's life. There was a visible bloody hole in his heart. Pucci. As if afraid that Toshimi Nagasaka's death wasn't complete enough, Yen Fengili gave him another stab. "Why? I treated you so well, and I even wanted to avenge your father. Tell me everything you want to know. Why are you so vicious?" Toshiomi Inaka's lips trembled as he asked. "Avenge my father." Yen Fengili followed and then said expressionlessly, as expected, "Master, you don't understand me. My only regret is that I didn't kill my father with my own hands. Archer and I will finish the mission you didn't finish," Yen Fengili said coldly and turned to leave. However, he did not see that in the dark room, a pair of bright eyes were watching this scene in a daze. "So that's how it is, Gilgamesh, that bastard betrayed me." Chapter 1698. "I'm sorry, Miss Alice Field. It was rude of me to let you see me in such a sorry state." Toshimi Dosaka's tone was very subtle. Due to the distance, Alice Phil could not hear his words clearly. She did not understand what he meant. "Master Enosaka, please speak your mind." Alice Field took a few bold steps forward, taking the initiative to approach the dying Toshiomi Enosaka. Dustless and Saber were both here, so she did not have to be afraid of Toshiomi Enosaka's schemes. "I would like to entrust the mother and daughter to the care of the Einsbaron family." Toshiomi Enosaka glanced at Kue Enosaka and the teary-eyed Rin Enosaka. He lowered his head in shame, then put on an apologetic expression and blamed himself. "Now that things have come to this, I won't blame anyone. I can only blame myself for being blind. It's fine if I die, but I don't want to implicate Kue and Rin." "You just realized that you were blind?" Wuchen snorted when he heard that. His face was full of ridicule and disdain. This guy was too self-righteous. He thought that he controlled the master who had calculated everything. That was why he was killed by himself in the end. "Watch your tone. I won't allow you to look down on my father." A girl with a ponytail and emerald eyes suddenly appeared in front of Dustless. Her angry eyes locked onto him, and she shook her fist threateningly. She looked like she would beat him up if he dared to talk nonsense again. This little girl, seeing this, Dustless could only roll his eyes. If it was any other heroic spirit who provoked him, he could have beaten them up to vent his anger. But if it was a little girl who was not even 10 years old, Rin, shut up. He's right. I was too complacent in this Holy Grail war, so much so that I neglected the dangerous people around me. Toshiomi Enosaka waved his hand with the last of his strength, then looked at Alice Field with hopeful eyes. "The Enosaka family will withdraw from this Holy Grail war. I hope that you can take care of the mother and daughter for me." Alice Phil hesitated for a moment when she heard this. Looking at Toshimi's pleading eyes, she couldn't help but feel pity for him. In the end, she gritted her teeth and said, "All right, I agree to your choice. If that's the case, then I can die in peace." Hearing this, Toshiomi Enosaka smiled and left the mortal world. In the end, he closed his turbid eyes in satisfaction. What a farce. However, Toshiomi Enosaka still has some conscience. At least he's better than the scum who used his wife as bait. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. He vaguely understood Toshiomi Inaka's intentions, and his impression of him changed slightly. Nothing was absolute. It was one thing if Yen Fengili killed Toshimi, but what if he attacked Rin and Kue Toshimi as well? It wasn't impossible. Yen Fengili was a temperamental person. No one knew what he would do. It was normal for Toshimi to leave his family in Alice's care. He could use this opportunity to protect Sang. Moreover, the Toshimi family had already withdrawn from this Holy Grail war. They were no longer a threat to the Ahrensburg family. "We won't be able to get the command seal. Yen Fengili probably took it all. Let's go back." After a few hours, Dustless and the others finally left the Toshimi family. During this time, they held a funeral for Toshimi. Alice Phil also took the initiative to comfort Rin and Kuei Toshimi. The orphan and widow were quite pitiful. On a bustling street, the car dustless and the others were stopped in front of a supermarket. Alice Phil said that she wanted to help Rin and Kuei Toshimi buy some basic necessities. Women sure have a lot of things to do. They're always like this. Sitting in the car, Dustless's casual words attracted 3 hostile gazes. He turned around and saw that it was Saber, Rin, and Kuei Toshimi. Cough cough cough. That was a slip of the tongue. After Wu-chan cursed his bad luck, he immediately apologized. They were living under the same roof. He could offend a strong man, but he definitely couldn't offend a woman. You guys wait here. I'll go see why Alice Phil is so slow. Seriously, it's just buying some necessities. Does she need to take so long? Dustless complained as he got out of the car. Just as he was about to close the door, an unexpected figure grabbed him. A strong man with red skin reached out and grabbed Dustless's shoulder. His rough face was filled with a bold smile. He waved the huge wine barrel in his other hand and laughed. Isn't this the 8th heroic spirit? Let's drink together tonight. I even invited that guy Gold Sparkle. A banquet between kings isn't something that can be casually attended. Do you want to come? This person was Ryder, the conqueror king Iskandar. His master was Weber Velvet. However, Dustless only glanced at him in boredom and said dispiritedly, "Sorry, I'm just a normal person. I'm not interested in the banquet of kings." Hey, don't reject me so coldly. Even if you're not interested, I remember that your ally Saber is a famous Night King. She should be interested in this kind of thing. Ryder didn't care about Dustless and looked at Saber in the car. Night King, what do you think? Don't you want to discuss the path of kings with other kings? Ryder asked expectantly as he got into the car with his rough face. Sorry, Conqueror King. My attitude towards this kind of thing is the same as Dustless. Saber also shook her head and refused to participate in the banquet of kings. Hiding at home every time, are you afraid of dying in the light? Dustless's sudden sarcasm stunned Saber and Ryder. They looked at the east corner at the same time. A golden light flashed and a man in golden armor appeared. Your eloquence is stronger than your strength. The arrogant archer hero king appeared and said proudly, the protagonist is usually the last to appear. This is common sense. The minions that come out early are the first to die. So in this war, this king is destined to have the last laugh. Archer, Lunatic's personality hasn't changed at all. Do you still think you can get the Holy Grail? To be honest, I'm already a little desperate. Taking a glance at Dustless, Ryder sighed and immediately poured himself a glass of wine. At the same time, he also handed a glass of wine to Dustless and Saber. Compared to the arrogant archer hero king, Ryder knew his strength better. Humph, bastard, pay attention to your words. The hero king archer swept an unfriendly glance at Ryder and immediately stared at Dustless and Saber with his torch-like eyes. He announced loudly, it's not about obtaining the Holy Grail. The so-called Holy Grail was originally this king's. It's just returning it to its rightful owner. Another thought is that this king wants to teach thieves like you who attempted to steal my treasures a lesson. This guy's head must have been crushed by a door. Dustless scanned the hero king archer with a look of pity. Immediately, he began drinking to drown his sorrows. After all, they were all kings. He did not have such a status, so it was inappropriate for him to interrupt. He just needed to stay out of it. Archer, the next time you talk big, you'd better build an iron tongue. Saber mocked the hero king coldly. This guy didn't even blush when he lied. It was obvious that he was an expert. Iron tongue. Hearing this, Archer frowned and pursed his lips. Then, he asked in puzzlement, this king's tongue isn't wrong. Why do I need an iron tongue? You don't even know this. Dustless exposed him with a smile, the next time you talk big, you won't sprain your tongue. After all, it's made of iron. With that said, everyone roared with laughter, ignoring the livid hero king. Not only that, when he walked into the bedroom, he saw two figures on his bedding. Dustless was immediately dumbfounded. The two uninvited guests in the room were not the most bizarre thing. The most bizarre thing was that these two figures were not wearing any clothes. Their exquisite and flawless skin was completely exposed to Dustless's sight. Get lost, pervert. The atmosphere was tense for a few seconds before a few pillows were thrown at him. Upon closer inspection, the two figures were actually Rin Enosaka and Kuei Enosaka. Wait! With a flick of his finger, Ryatsu shredded all the pillows. After taking a closer look at the furnishings in the room, Dustless confirmed that he didn't walk into the wrong room. He shouted angrily, "This is my room without a doubt. The two of you are sleeping in my room without a doubt. There's no doubt that the two of you are the intruders. How did I become the pervert? Don't you get it? This castle doesn't have any extra rooms for us to use, so your room is being used. Amir Einherjar should feel honored." Rin Enosaka and her mother hid under the bedding with red faces. Ha! Dustless was speechless as he looked at the arrogant Rin Tosaka. This bullshit explanation was too far-fetched. The Ahrensburg family was a nouveau riche. The castle was as big as a few football fields. How could there not be a few rooms for people to sleep in? I'm really sorry, Mr. Einherjar. It was Miss Alice Phil who arranged for Rin and me to stay here. If you are dissatisfied, Rin and I can leave. The gentle and virtuous Kuei Enosaka explained. That's not necessary. You can sleep here for now. I'll go ask Master if there are any other bedrooms. Good night. Dustless turned around and closed the door. Then, he walked towards Alice Phil's room. Unexpectedly, as soon as he opened the door, he saw her arguing with Wei Gong Kisi. Their faces were red, and it was obvious that they were both angry. How strange. The two of them can argue. Dustless had a strange expression. In his impression, this couple had always been the type that stuck together like honey. It was unprecedented for them to argue. I have something to do, so I'll leave first. Take care. Seeing Dustless appear, Wei Gong Kisi left with a gloomy expression. Alice Phil, you too, Dustless stopped himself. After all, this was a matter between the couple. As an outsider, he had no right to interrupt. Do you want to ask about Kuei and Rin? I'm sorry, Dustless, but this is something I allowed. Alice Phil explained with a bleak expression. Her bright eyes clearly understood Dustless' intentions. Is that so? Dustless nodded slightly. He couldn't help but ask, then where's my new room? No, there's no new room. I deliberately let you two sleep together. Alice Phil shook her head. Then, she revealed a meaningful smile. Her face was very pale, and her smile looked more like a forced smile. I know why you want to ask, but this matter is very special. I can only wrong you for now. Special? Dustless smiled bitterly. Even if it was special, he couldn't betray his teammate. Even if he had a reason, he couldn't. Chapter 1702. As she looked at the aggrieved Dustless, the resentment on Alice Field's face was completely wiped away, and a wisp of a heartfelt smile flashed on her jade-like face. What's so funny? Dustless rolled his eyes and asked. He felt that this girl was gloating. Sigh, Alice Phil frowned and sighed. Her delicate face gradually lost its luster. She said sadly, Kisi wanted to kill the mother and daughter. I couldn't bear it. So we inevitably quarreled. Kill the two of them. Are you referring to Tsukasa Enosaka and Rin Enosaka? Kishi seems to be a righteous partner. Is there no reason? He doesn't look like someone who would kill the innocent. Are you mistaken? Dustless frowned. Although he was ruthless, as long as those people didn't resist and restrain themselves, he could let them go. Of course there is a reason. Although what Kishi said is reasonable, I have already promised Toshimi and Osaka. If I hurt the two of them again, I can't accept it. Alice Phil. You didn't do anything wrong. Dustless smiled and encouraged her loudly, you did the right thing. Remember, you are a human with flesh and blood. You are not a puppet created according to Kishi's plan. There is no need to follow his will. So you agree with my way of doing things? Alice Phil retracted her sadness and revealed a cheerful smile. Of course I agree. Dustless smiled and reached out his hand. He added in his heart, as long as Kishi likes it, no matter if it is right or wrong, I will stand on his opposite side. Alice Phil organized her thoughts and explained, Miss Wumi, I just received news that Yudong Yayan from the Yudong family is also participating in this Holy Grail War. And the reason is related to Tsukasa Enosaka and Rin Enosaka. The reason why Kishi asked me to kill the two of them secretly was to prevent Yudong Yayan from finding out that Tsukasa Enosaka and Rin are living in our house. Otherwise, Yudong Yayan's berserker will very likely attack us. The enemy will also have an opportunity to take advantage of. Until now, Kishi is still afraid of Yanfeng Qi. Is that the only reason? Wei Gong Qisi's words make sense. Dustless nodded in agreement. This reason was barely acceptable. If Jantong Yayan really knew that Kuei and Ling were here, he would definitely lead the berserker army to attack the Einsbaron family. But, changing the topic, Dustless glanced at Alice and Phil suspiciously. Then they can also live with Saber. There's no need for me to live with them, Alice, Phil, I also think that the mother and daughter can sleep with me. Don't you trust my ability? At the same time, Saber grumbled. For some reason, when she heard that Dustless was going to sleep with Ling and Kuei, she felt a little jealous. After all, they were allies in the trenches. It did not feel good to have them taken away from her just like that. Have the Hero King and the Conqueror King left? Noticing Saber's appearance, Dustless instinctively looked out of the window. The place where they were drinking was empty. The Hero King and the Conqueror King seemed to have left. This banquet could be considered the best banquet. If they were to meet again, they would fight to the death. That's a good idea, but it's impossible. Alice Phil's face was filled with worry. She decisively rejected the idea. That's impossible. You're Qisi's master. What if he uses a command spell on you? Although the probability of Wei Gong Qisi using a command spell on such a trivial matter was close to zero, nothing was absolute. It was better to be safe than sorry. Moreover, Wei Gong Qisi was a person who was difficult to grasp. Moreover, in this Holy Grail War, all of Wei Gong Qisi's command spells remained intact because of Dustless. Until now, he had not used a command spell on Saber. Even if he were to use a command spell on Saber, it would not be a big deal. After all, the Holy Grail War was about to end. So, I'll be the scapegoat this time. Dustless glanced at Alice Phil in annoyance. He said in a troubled and depressed tone, doesn't that mean that it's useless for me to change rooms? Kuei and Ling will still be with me. That's what I mean. Alice Phil nodded slightly. She looked at Dustless strangely and said, you're just a heroic spirit. Why do you have to care so much? Hey. You're talking as if heroic spirits have no human rights. Dustless made a scary expression. Unexpectedly, Alice Phil did not care. Instead, she made a face at him. She was not afraid of Dustless's threat at all. I'm destined to be the scapegoat this time. Wu Chen looked up to the sky and heaved a long sigh. It was a sad thing to have such a troublemaking master. Scapegoat. It's not as serious as you said. At most, I'll let you be a temporary bodyguard. As if she thought of something, Alice Phil's eyes rolled. She looked like a sly fox. Even though Kue Dosaka and Toshimi Dosaka have been married for many years and even had 2 children, we were bathing together just now. I know her figure. Cough, cough, cough. Noticing that Alice Phil was getting further and further away from the topic, Wu Chen couldn't help but cough twice to interrupt Alice Phil's speech. He opened his mouth and deliberately changed the topic to Saber. As you can see, the task of protecting Alice Phil will be handed over to you, Saber. Leave it to me. Also, don't do anything out of line. Otherwise, my sacred sword will go berserk. Saber instantly took out the Excalibur. It invisibly emitted an extraordinary aura. It was full of warnings and threats. This guy is deliberately making things difficult for me. Dustless glared at Alice Phil bitterly. He nodded at Saber and left. 10 minutes later, Jantong Yayan finally came to Dustless's room and found Ling and Kuei's room. I'm relieved to be praised by you, but... is it really okay for you to ignore me like this? Jiantong Yayan was shocked by the sudden voice. He turned his head and saw Wu Chen, who looked lazy. He was sitting on the sofa, eating potato chips and drinking Coke. He looked very leisurely and comfortable. Impossible, you should be fighting Berserker. Why are you here now? Staring at Dustless, who was fighting Berserker not far away, Tong Yayan glanced at Dustless, who was eating chips. He rubbed his eyes to make sure he was not seeing things. He was shocked to find that there were 2 Dustless in front of him. Idiot, the one fighting Berserker is just my shadow clone. Dustless glanced at the shocked Tong Yayan and showed a look of disdain. Berserker would have a hard time dealing with my doppelganger, let alone my real body. I purposely suppressed the strength of my doppelganger so that Berserker could stall it. My main purpose was to lure you out. As I expected, you really fell for it. How pathetic. Tong Yayan was furious when he heard Wu Chen's words. He stared at Wu Chen's mocking face. He felt that his dignity and IQ had been trampled on by this abominable guy. A mere heroic spirit dares to trick me. Eat him up. In his anger, Jiantong Yayan suddenly waved his big hand. His skin suddenly burst open and countless larvae broke out from his skin. There were dozens or even hundreds of larvae that came to bite Wu Chen. The buzzing sound was unbearable. Being stared at by countless man-eating insects, no one could laugh it off. You're overestimating yourself. Dustless snorted and rolled his eyes. His pupils emitted a ferocious aura. At the same time, a strong wave of Ryatsu erupted from his body. Puchi! 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 All kinds of disgusting insects wandering in the space collapsed in an instant and turned into blood. The disgusting smell was as unbearable as the smell on Tong Yayan's body. Stupid thing, Tong Yayan. Have your intelligence been eaten by insects? You want to use such a rubbish trick to deal with a heroic spirit? Do you think I'm a small character like Toshimi Nagasaka? Chapter 1705. Hearing Dustless's mocking words, Jotong Yayan was enraged. After all, the so-called heroic spirits were just tools used by the masters. No matter how strong they were still just tools. Just like Lancer and Kenneth in the original novel. Lancer's combat power was amazing, and he even injured Saber. However, as the master, Kenneth ordered Lancer to commit suicide. Lancer couldn't escape his tragic fate and was killed by his own gun in the end. Damn you, you're just a heroic spirit. How dare you be so arrogant when you're already dead? Suddenly, Jotong Yayan realized that Akui and Rin were still in the castle. Jiutong Yayan, who was in despair, suddenly regained his strength. The mother and daughter were his spiritual sustenance. Therefore, Jiutong Yayan's little universe exploded again. Crack! 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 Jiutong Yayan's skin exploded again, and the insects that were hidden deep inside his body flew out again. These insects were abnormally fat. It was obvious that Jiutong Yayan's body was a feast for them. Disgusting things. Dustless's face turned even colder. He quickly formed a hand seal, and a huge fireball flew out. Fire release, great fireball technique. Boom boom boom. In an instant, the insects that were flying towards Jiutong Yayan turned into dust and disappeared without a trace. Poochie. Tong Yayan was forced to use his strength again and again. In the end, he fell against the wall. His throat rolled a few times, and then he spat out a mouthful of bright red blood. There were also a few insects coming out of his mouth. How rude of you to dirty someone's room with such disgusting things. Especially when there are two ladies living here. Didn't your father, Jiutong Yayan, teach you manners? Leaning on the sofa, Dustless lazily stared at Jiutong Yayan. He also threw the potato chips aside. Even though the tempered glass was broken and the whole room was very cool, the disgusting smell still lingered in the room. Dustless also lost his appetite. Do you really want Akui and Rin to live in peace forever? Dustless glanced at Jiutong Yayan and stared at his crazy face. His voice then sank. Or is it just your rationality that's causing trouble? Do you simply want to possess the mother and daughter? Bullshit. Hearing this, Jiutong Yayan flew into a rage and roared, I regard Ling and Kuei as my family. How could I do such a thing? Don't slander me. I participated in this Holy Grail war because I don't want them to continue following that scumbag Toshimi. Is that so? Then I'll take back what I said earlier. By the way, I'd like to apologize. In other words, your only wish is for Kuei and Ling to live on without any worries, right? Dustless asked with a smile. He looked harmless, but deep in his eyes, there was a scheming light. Of course. For this goal, even if I have to sacrifice my life, I won't hesitate. Jiutong Yayan, who was physically exhausted, finally knelt on the ground. He gritted his teeth and his eyes were filled with determination. Wow, it's rare to see such a great person like you. I can't help but admire you. Dustless continued to smile, and then he instigated, however, even if I give the mother and daughter to you, what kind of protection can you give them? After you die, where can they go? Do you still need to say that? Of course, it's the Jiutong family. The two of them are going to live there for the rest of their lives, living a carefree and stable life like Sakura. Jiutong Yayan answered without hesitation. Then here comes the problem. I don't need to say it. You know what kind of person Jiutong Yayan is. For the Holy Grail, that guy is crazy. And Ling is a genius with an extremely high magical talent. Do you think Jiutong Yayan will overturn her? Jiutong Yayan, you are pushing the mother and daughter into the fire pit. Dustless's voice seemed to contain magic, making Jiutong Yayan roll his eyes and fall silent. What do you want to say? Staring at Dustless, Jiutong Yayan keenly realized that Dustless's words had other meanings. But it was undeniable that what he said made sense. With Jiutong Yayan's personality, he would never let Ling and Kuei go. It was equivalent to pushing the mother and daughter into a merciless sea of fire. I can give the mother and daughter to you, but the premise is, you have to kill your biological father, Jiutong Yayan. That guy won't let Ling and Kuei go easily. Unless you kill that old man, I can only give you Kuei and Ling's protection. Dustless said sincerely. Kill him. Jiutong Yayan was touched when he heard that. In his mind, a terrible old man at the end of his life appeared. His hoarse laughter lingered in his heart for a long time, forming a shadow pattern that was difficult to get rid of. Yes, after you die, that old man won't die. After this Holy Grail, there will be the next Holy Grail war. Maybe that old man will use some evil means. Enough, I agree to your conditions. A raging light flashed in the depths of his eyes. Jiantong Yayan finally gritted his teeth and agreed to Dustless's conditions. At the same time, he roared, I will go back and kill that old man Jiantong Yayan now. I hope you will abide by the agreement when the time comes. As soon as he finished speaking, Jiantong Yayan dragged his tired body and left. Before he left, he did not forget to glance at the room where Ling and Kuei were sleeping soundly. A layer of transparent enchantment was clearly visible. Even though it was as thin as a cicada's wing, even though it was close at hand, it was still at the end of the world for Jiantong Yayan. No wonder you were used. You are so naive. Even if you kill that old man, I won't give the mother and daughter to you. Jiantong Yayan, just like you said before, after all, I am just a samvart. The decision is in Alice Phil's hands. With a devilish smile, Dustless finally closed his eyes. Chapter 1706. Jiantong Family. Jiantong Yayan returned to his bedroom in a daze. He pushed the door open and planned to lie down on the bed to rest for a while. Unexpectedly, a mysterious figure hit him with a stick. Bang! A heavy stick hit him and Jiantong Yayan was instantly smashed to the ground. A huge red mark appeared on his forehead where he was hit. Jiantong Yayan turned his head and looked at him fiercely. Jiantong Xinyan, be careful. Be careful. I will kill you. Ha! Trash like you. Yayan, since when did you like to boast so shamelessly? After being a hero spirit for a while, you still have confidence. Jiantong Xinyan walked out of the darkness with a walking stick. His eyes were shining like a ghost. It was creepy. His evil and bright eyes looked like a smart and cunning demon. Jiantong Xinyan, let Sakura go immediately. Changing the topic, Tong Yayan used all of his strength to turn around and announce in an extremely cold tone, you better know your place before I make a decision. Decision? What do you want to decide? Yayan, I don't understand where your confidence comes from. Just based on your current half-dead state. You better know your place and help me get the Holy Grail. In that case, I can let Sakura go. If you fail, I can only apologize. Jiantong Xinyan sat on the sofa calmly and looked at Jiantong Yayan who was sweating profusely. He sneered and said, it is impossible for you to get the Holy Grail in your current state. In this case, Sakura can't give up. Old man, you still haven't given up on Sakura. Jiantong Yayan glared at him. His face was cold. Are you going to break the agreement? Agreement? Ridiculous. If you really remember the agreement, you should remember to help me get the Holy Grail. If you fail, the agreement will be invalid. Jiantong Xinyan turned his face shamelessly. You bastard, how dare you? Jiantong Yayan clenched his fists when he heard that. The veins on his forehead bulged. The insects that had disappeared were running around in his skin again. Do you want to be rough with me? With your level? Before we fight, I have to warn you that if you use your heroic spirit rashly, you'll definitely die. Jiantong Zhangyan kindly reminded him that he had not obtained the Holy Grail yet. Naturally, he did not want Jiantong Yayan to die just like that. I'll drag you down with me, berserker. But Tong Yayan didn't care. He shouted, and a black skeleton knight appeared in front of him. He said coldly, that guy is right. As long as I get rid of you, everything will be over. That guy. Tong Zhangyan was stunned when he heard this. He was secretly annoyed. A rare flame swept through his rotten heart. Someone actually taught his son to kill his father. It was extremely ironic. Ow, 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 ow. Berserker let out his signature low growl and rushed to Zhang Yin Jiantong without hesitation. The big sword in his right hand was the first to cut a cold light into the void. Puchi. Tong Zhang body was cut open by Berserker mercilessly. However, there was no blood flowing out as expected. After the old man was cut, his body turned into a large number of flying insects and scattered in all directions. Humph, old man, you run fast. Tong Yayan snorted angrily. He dragged his exhausted body and ran around like a headless fly, looking for traces of Xiaoying. Damn it, which bastard dares to trick my son to kill me? If I find out, I'll definitely let him know the pain of being bitten by thousands of insects. In the gloomy underground warehouse, there were insects everywhere. There were so many of them that they almost covered the entire ground. TSK, old man, do you hate me that much? A sloppy voice suddenly sounded. Tong Zhangyan was shocked. He suddenly turned his head, and an unexpected figure was fixed in his eyes. The short black hair was messy, but there was a trace of elegance in it. Those dark eyes were eternal and unforgettable. Especially the smile on the corner of his mouth, it made Tong Zhangyan even more furious. It was as if he was looking at a clown. It made his face gloomy. The eighth heroic spirit. Are you the one who instigated Yayan to kill me? Glaring at Dushless, Tong Zhangyan said hoarsely, that idiot was deceived by an outsider. His IQ is even lower than Xiao Ying's. Useless trash. Ayaya, if Yayan finds out that you're scolding your son like this, he'll be very sad. However, there's one thing I agree with. He can't even kill a terminally ill old man. That guy is really not suitable to be a master. He's indeed useless. Dustless agreed with Tong Zhangyan's opinion. So you're going to personally lead the army to kill me? Tong Zhangyan's eyes were cold. He said, it's not that easy to kill me. After all, whoosh whoosh whoosh. Before the old man finished speaking, Dustless turned into a ray of light and appeared in front of him. Then, the scorching heaven sword of clouds slashed down. Puchi. The golden light penetrated Tong Zhangyan's body. From his forehead to his lower body, he was cut open by Dustless. His eyes were staring straight at the indifferent face of Dustless. It seemed that he was unwilling to die. Old man, you can rest in peace. Glancing faintly at Tong Zhangyan, this guy's body immediately burned automatically. Amaterasu. The black fire engulfed Tong Zhangyan's whole body and annihilated him in an instant. Finally, all the insects in the warehouse were burned by Dustless. I still have to take Xiaoying away. Shaking his head in distress, his observation haki spread out, and Dustless began to look for Sakura's traces. This is what Kue and Osaka begged. Anyway, I'm bored, so I might as well help her. Dustless suddenly felt Tong Zhangyan's house because he suddenly thought of a big problem. He didn't have time to ask before letting Tong Zhangyan leave. A person who was twisted by so-called justice would do anything crazy. Is that so? Then I have something important to tell you. The corners of Wu Chen's mouth curled into a treacherous arc as he said, Wei Gong Qixi, that fellow. Previously, he still hoped to kill Kuei Healing. Letting him live is definitely a big problem. Why don't you go and kill that fellow? Did I hear wrongly? You want me to kill Wei Gong Qixi? Her eyes were fixed on Dushless. Jiantong Yayan felt that her brain wasn't enough. This guy in front of her wanted her to kill Wei Gong Qixi. Did he not know what this meant? If things went wrong, Wei Gong Qixi's heroic spirit, saber, would disappear. Are you willing to do that? That fellow is a huge threat to Ling and Kuei if he's alive. Dustless increased his tone and said, I don't mind telling you directly. That fellow is actually a pervert and a sex fiend. He is. Enough. I promise you that I'll kill that fellow Wei Gong Qixi. She glanced at Xiao Ying's room with a reluctant expression. But in the end, she gritted her teeth and left. Idiot, you think you can kill Wei Gong Qixi with just you? That fellow has Saber's protection. Furthermore, Wei Gong Qixi is an extremely cunning and sinister person. Dustless shook his head and turned to Xiao Ying's room. Creak. The door was gently pushed open by Dustless. Unexpectedly, before Dustless could take the initiative to summon her, a tender and soft fist smashed towards Dustless's face. Bang! Dustless casually raised his hand to block the fist. He frowned slightly. The person who attacked him was Jiantong Yayan. Her eyes were empty and lifeless. She was like a walking corpse without any vitality. Grandpa said that other than him, anyone who dares to approach me is a bad person. Xiaoying muttered vaguely. There was no emotion in her voice. She looked like a zombie. Has she been brainwashed? Dustless raised his eyebrows when he saw this, and then he remembered the character of Jiantong Yayan. He couldn't help but say strangely, that old man wants Xiaoying to kill Jiantong Yayan. As expected, he's an old monster. Bang! Dustless knocked Xiaoying unconscious with a karate chop. He tried to use the Tensigen to modify Xiao Ying's memory and erase the tragic memory of the Jiantong family from the depths of her soul. I hope that Jiantong Yayan can cut off Wei Gong Qixi's hand. It's best to make him disabled, so that he won't be scheming all day long. Dustless left the Jiantong family with Xiaoying in his arms and quickly rushed to the castle of the Ahrensberg family. He had a feeling that Jiantong Yayan will definitely teach Wei Gong Qixi a lesson. Chapter 1708. In the forest near the castle of the Ahrensberg family. You are too reckless. That Dustless is very powerful. I am sure that even Saber would not be able to defeat him, let alone your berserker. In the dark forest, a few figures could be vaguely seen. Jiantong Yayan, let's come up with another plan. I will help you sneak Katsuki Tasaka and Rin Tasaka away. As a price, you have to help me kill Yan Feng and Chili. Wei Gong Qixi looked at the white-haired Jiantong Yayan and suddenly felt that something was wrong with him. This guy's eyes. Something is wrong. Looking at Jiantong Yayan and Berserker who was beside him, Wei Gong Qixi was not worried. He could summon Saber here instantly with a command spell. No, I have changed my plan. He sinisterly approached Wei Gong Qixi. Tong Yayan's calm eyes instantly turned scarlet. His killing intent was completely revealed and filled with a frightening killing intent. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Suddenly, Jiantong Yayan attacked relentlessly. His body turned into a gust of wind and pounced on Wei Gong Qixi who was still in a daze. Gulp. He grabbed Wei Gong Qixi's vital part mercilessly. What are you trying to do? Realizing that his vital part as a man was being grabbed, Wei Gong Qixi shivered and looked at Jiantong Yayan who was in a frenzy. You bastard pervert, I will take you down with me even if I die. Jiantong Yayan's veins were bulging on his right hand as he increased his strength. This guy is so evil. He wants Wei Gong Qixi but can't be a man. Dustless was speechless. He thought that Jiantong Yayan would just cripple Wei Gong Qixi. He did not expect Jiantong Yayan to be so ruthless. He wanted to crush Wei Gong Qixi's balls. No, I have to help Jiantong Yayan once. I like this kind of method. Dustless laughed. He knew that Jiantong Yayan had mastered some special magic. He might be able to turn back time. If that was the case, Jiantong Yayan's sneak attack would have been wasted. If that's the case, then Dustless focused on Wei Gong Qixi's body, purposely avoiding the fatal wound. He mercilessly threw out a pitch-black dagger towards Wei Gong Qixi's body. Swish! Swish! The tip of the pitch-black dagger was shining with a cold light. This is bad. That bastard Jiantong Yayan actually has an accomplice. Hearing the sharp sound behind him, Wei Gong Qixi turned his head and saw a dagger emitting a cold light. Immediately, his heart turned cold. Just as he was about to cast a spell to dodge, it was already too late. The merciless cold light pierced through Wei Gong Qixi's body, causing blood to flow out. Although he wanted to kill this bastard, Dustless had to admit that if he lost Wei Gong Qixi, Saber would immediately collapse and disappear. Puchi! The dagger pierced through his body, leaving a bloody hole. However, because Dustless had purposely avoided the vital parts, Wei Gong Qixi's injuries weren't too serious. Puchi! Chapter 1710. Berserker's strength was actually not bad. Among the heroic spirits, his stats were considered outstanding. However, he was not very lucky this time. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Berserker attacked Dustless with his sword. The sharp edge of the sword slashed down horizontally, carrying the anger of Jiantong Yayan. It looked like he was going to cut Dustless in half. Clang clang. A dull roar spread out, and a spark appeared in an instant. Berserker's fatal attack was also blocked. A delicate and seemingly weak figure stepped forward without hesitation. At the critical moment, Saber's Excalibur blocked the dangerous cold light. Ah, what a scary heroic spirit! Dustless said in a frivolous tone, but his face was expressionless. Leave this guy to me. Berserker gives me a feeling of déjà vu. Saber stared at the black-armored swordsman in front of her cautiously and suspiciously. She actually had some impression of his seemingly messy swordsmanship. Do whatever you want. Just don't let this guy run away. Dustless gave Saber a reassuring look, and his teasing gaze fell on Jiantong Yayan again. Clang 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 clang. Under the night sky, two agile and vigorous figures fought with all their strength. Every time their swords collided, there would be dazzling sparks. King Arthur, Berserker always let out a vague and hoarse roar from his throat. It was as low and terrifying as a beast. What a troublesome guy. Saber forced Berserker back with both hands. Every time she slashed, she used all her strength. The person who was in the way is gone. Dustless saw this and sighed heavily. He immediately looked up and stared at the angry Jiantong Yayan. He smiled unscrupulously. Don't show such an angry expression. If you don't control your emotions, the worms in your body will consume you faster. I will be very sad if you die. After all, we are allies, Yayan. Humph, put away that hypocritical smile of yours. If you were betrayed and abandoned like trash after being used by others, how would you feel? Jiantong Yayan asked. You are such a cunning person. I will not let you go even if I become a ghost. Really? Then I'll make sure you can't even be a ghost. Dustless snorted indifferently. Then, he sneered and said, if I crush your body and soul, I'll see how you're going to take revenge on me. Puchi. 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 Tong Yayan clenched his teeth when he heard Yi Chen's words. The skin all over his body burst open. Hundreds and thousands of fat teeth opened up and bit towards Yi Chen. A deathbed struggle. When Dustless saw this, he glanced at the group of engraved worms and rolled his eyes. The fire that was not there started burning without any sign. Tens ho. In the blink of an eye, the fire annihilated all the insects. Not even the residue was left. They evaporated into thin air. Not only that, under the control of Dustless, the black ominous fire spread to the head of Jiantong Yayan. Ah, it hurts. Chapter 1711. Clang. 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 Even though Master was dead, Berserker was still as ferocious as ever. He and Saber were engaged in a fierce battle. Berserker seemed to have realized that he would soon leave this world. Not only did he not weaken his attacks, but he also kept the remaining magic power in his body and unleashed it all. Instead, he became more and more courageous as he fought. He used up all of his magic power. His obsession with Saber was so deep that it felt like he wanted to drag her down with him. With Saber's arrogant personality, even if I helped her once, she would not appreciate it. Instead, she would blame me for being a busybody. Are all the ancient people so stubborn? What a troublesome problem, girl. Staring at Saber with a headache, Dustless sighed. For Saber, the so-called dignity of a knight should not be trampled on. It was more important than anything else. Even if she died, she would not care. But, looking at Berserker's heavy armor, Dustless warned, Saber, put some distance between you and that guy for now. Dustless, you, Saber frowned. She felt an unknown power flowing in Dustless's body. She angrily stopped him and said, Dustless, even you want to trample on my dignity as a knight like Wei Gong Kisi. However, Dustless was silent. He ignored Saber and stared at Berserker with his cold eyes. Path of destruction, black coffin. Swoosh. Swoosh. The black light that filled the sky bombarded Berserker's body. He was immediately pushed back. Berserker's tough armor also had visible cracks. Dustless, you. Seeing such a scene, Saber was not happy. Instead, she was furious. For the first time, she was filled with dissatisfaction and resentment towards Dustless. Saber, if you want to punish him, it's not too late to see the situation. Pointing at Berserker's direction, Dustless said, this guy's true colors are about to be revealed. True face. Saber was stunned when she heard that. She looked at Berserker and saw that the cracks on his armor were getting bigger and bigger until they spread all over his body. Saber's gaze was fixed on Berserker's body. Attacked by the black coffin, the steel armor gradually peeled off. Saber's beautiful eyes suddenly shrank, revealing a familiar face. Lancelot. Why are you Berserker? Saber's mind went blank as she stared at the face. Roar. King Arthur, after Dustless destroyed his impenetrable armor, Berserker's consciousness became much clearer. Although he was still very violent, he was not as crazy and reckless as before. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. However, Berserker only hesitated for a moment before attacking Saber with his relic. His speed was so fast that even Dustless could only catch a glimpse of a blurry shadow. Seeing that Berserker was about to approach Saber while the latter was still in shock, Dustless had no choice but to interrupt the match and help Saber. 10,000 Celestial Attraction. Chapter 1713. In Wei Gong Keisai's room. Alice Phil sat beside the bed and stared at the haggard man. She didn't know why, but she wasn't as sad as she used to be. The heart-wrenching pain was no longer there. Now, all that was left was pure worry. It was similar to the worry between friends. Ever since Dustless and Saber appeared, her relationship with Wei Gong Keisai gradually went in the opposite direction. It developed further and further until today. Especially because of the relationship between Takumi and Osaka and Rin and Osaka, the two of them had a rare quarrel. Creak. The tightly closed door was gently pushed open. Dustless walked in quietly. You're here. Alice Phil's face outlined a forced smile. It looked extremely forced. Her delicate snow-white face was even paler than usual. Her spirit was also very dispirited and weak. Alice Phil, don't worry. If you're so sad, he wouldn't want to see it. Walking in front of Alice Phil, Dustless patted her shoulder and comforted her gently. Alice Phil, go out and rest for a while. Leave this to me for the time being. Alice Phil didn't pay attention to him. Instead, she suddenly attacked Dustless. Alice Phil, you're... Dustless was dumbfounded. He looked at Alice Phil, who was close to him. A strange fragrance entered his nose along Alice Phil's face. Suddenly, he felt that his waist was bound. His chest was also squeezed by her proud cleavage. Looking down, Alice Phil suddenly hugged Dustless. I'm so scared. After being silent for a while, Alice Phil said softly with tears in her eyes, maybe soon, I'll leave this world and rush to that unfamiliar world, that world. Dustless frowned slightly and asked, are you talking about the world after people die? Don't worry, you're so beautiful. Even those little ghosts of the King of Hell will be charmed by you. They can't bear to let you die. Poochie. Alice Phil suddenly laughed. She threw a charming glance at Dustless and said, loquacious. Sometimes, I wonder if you're still alive. What you do and what you think are completely different from those hero spirits. Really? Do you really want him to live that much? That way, you two can have a rendezvous like this, right? An extremely oppressive and gloomy voice that was as indignant as a volcano suddenly sounded. This is... You're awake. Dustless and Alice Phil were startled. They looked towards the source of the sound, and to their surprise, it was Wei Gong Chi-Si, whose face was filled with black lines. He stared at Dustless and Alice Phil ferociously. Seeing this, Alice Phil was overjoyed. TSK, you're awake. I was worried, you're worried. It's all bullshit. Wei Gong Chi-Si's eyes widened. He was so angry that he vomited 3 liters of blood. He glared angrily. He didn't expect that Alice Phil and Dustless would get together right after he fell ill. Furthermore, it's fine if the two of you are having an affair, but you're even having an affair in my ward. Doing this kind of thing in front of me, is that exciting or fulfilling? Preposterous. How can you bully me like this? Too shameless. The two of you. You only feel a sense of accomplishment when you do this kind of thing in front of me. I suddenly woke up. Did I disturb the two of you? May I ask if you need me to continue pretending to be unconscious? Wei Gong Chi-Si stared fiercely at Dustless. His stomach swelled up, and it looked like he was about to explode. Tisk, you're mistaken. The truth is not what you think. Seeing this, Alice Phil hurriedly let go of Dustless. Her face was red as she looked at Wei Gong Chi-Si's red cheeks. She couldn't help but feel ashamed deep in her heart. At this moment, Dustless suddenly stood up and didn't give Alice Phil a chance to explain. Wei Gong Chi-Si, don't you know? You're about to die. I'm helping you take care of Alice Phil. You should be thanking me. Especially now that you're just a eunuch. Moreover, you're about to die soon. You can die in peace. Leave Alice Phil and your daughter to me. Wu Chen said righteously. Moreover, he pulled Alice Phil into his arms in front of Wei Gong Chi-Si. Moreover, he even kissed her delicate thin lips even more fiercely. Poochie. Seeing this scene, Wei Gong Chi-Si was momentarily stunned. In the end, he couldn't hold back the fire in his heart. He spat out a mouthful of old blood and fainted. Dustless, what are you talking about? Alice Phil hurriedly pushed Dustless away. Looking at the unconscious Wei Gong Chi-Si, she hurriedly ran out. Moreover, she was extremely anxious as she called for a doctor. TSK, Wei Gong Chi-Si, a scum like you is really lucky. Looking at Alice Phil's disappearing figure, Dustless was rather envious of this guy's luck with women. Men die for those who understand them, women dress up for those who love them. Now that Alice Phil was so anxious, it meant that although she and Wei Gong Chi-Si were estranged, she still hadn't forgotten Wei Gong Chi-Si. Forget it, I'll temporarily help you maintain your life for a few days. At least before this Holy Grail war ends, you definitely can't die. Walking in front of the sickbed, Dustless's palm emitted an emerald glow. Using the would-release method, he injected a large amount of life force into Wei Gongqi's body. What a sin, this brat better not die from anger because of me. Looking at the blood-red sheet, Dustless secretly scolded Wei Gongqi in his heart. This brat is too weak. I only took a little liberties with your wife, is there a need to be so sad? Anyway, you have a mistress, Jiu Mamie. With her, you don't have to worry about your future life at all. Chapter 17:14. Dustless was talking to himself. If Wei Gongqi heard it, he would definitely jump up in anger. Those words were just too unpleasant to listen to. However, looking at his current state, he is not qualified to continue being Saber's master. I'm afraid he would not even be as good as me. What a useless piece of trash. After checking the condition of Wei Gongqi's body, Dustless realized that he had gone too far. Wei Gongqi was both mentally and physically exhausted. His mental power was severely overdrawn. How long he could live would depend on his body. In short, I can't let you die now. Dustless threw the complicated emotions out of his mind. He increased the life force of would release into Wei Gongqi's body and slightly healed his wounds. After a few minutes, the fainted Wei Gongqi opened his eyes again. Dustless. Why would you be so kind as to save me? What is your goal? Wei Gongqi turned his head to look at Dustless's face and asked, What is your plan? I don't believe that you are so great. Idiot who doesn't understand human nature, get it straight. This is to save you. When you speak, remember that the person you are talking to is the benefactor who saved your life. Wu Chen emphasized the word to remind him. The benefactor who saved my life. Wei Gongqi was choked by those words. His face twitched as he put on a fake smile and said, Then. How do you think I should thank you? Give you Alice and Phil? Do I need you to give me that? Dustless sneered and said, After you die, everything will be mine. Your wife and daughter will be mine. Veins popped out on Wei Gongqi's face. He bit his tongue and roared, You, this, brat, don't go too far. After this, Holy Grail War ends, you will die without a doubt. You don't have to worry about that. After sweeping a glance at Wei Gongqi, Dustless muttered to himself for a moment before revealing his intentions. Wei Gongqi, since you won't be able to hold on for long, why don't we do this? Transfer your command incantation to me and I can help you live for a while. You want my command spell? Wei Gongqi was startled, and asked without hesitation, You want to continue fighting as Saber's master? What a joke. Ha ha ha. Wei Gongqi let out a disgusting sneer as he rolled around on the bed in an exaggerated manner. You, a servant, actually want to become a master and continue fighting? What a joke. Insensible idiot. Upon seeing this, Dustless's expression turned cold, and a sinister arc flashed in his eyes. The chakra that was channeling into Wei Gongqi's body suddenly stopped, and the chakra materialized, turning into a sharp knife that pierced into Wei Gongqi's skin. Poochie. It hurts, you bastard, how dare you do this to me? Wei Gongqi felt the abnormality in his abdomen, and cold sweat flowed down his forehead due to the pain. Don't get it wrong, I don't want to become Saber's master yet. This is just an early negotiation, and the purpose is to tell you that when you can't hold on any longer, I will become Saber's master. Dustless said with certainty. If a trash like Wei Gongqi could become master, why couldn't he? It was simply too funny. Furthermore, Wei Gongqi didn't understand Dustless's situation. In reality, he didn't die, and he wasn't a true heroic spirit. You're on your own now. Noticing that Wei Gongqi's body had regained some color, Dustless didn't overdo it. If it wasn't for Saber, it would be better for this eyesore to die. Remember, I don't need to snatch anything from you. After you die, everything will be mine, haha. Dustless let out a laugh that made Wei Gong Qixi feel nauseous. His eyes stared at Dustless, who was leaving. If the heavens could feel his wish, Wei Gong Qixi was willing to die together with Dustless at all costs. Damn it, I definitely won't allow this to happen. After Dustless left, Wei Gong Qixi's eyes flashed, and a ruthless expression flashed across his face. Alice Phil is the vessel on my back. If she can die for me, she should feel honored. Anyway, what awaits her is death. I definitely can't accept her becoming Dustless's mistress, and I definitely can't tolerate Alice Phil betraying me. On the bed, Wei Gong Qixi screamed crazily. Alice Phil was the vessel of the Holy Grail, and her ending was death. No matter who obtained the Holy Grail in the end, she would definitely die. In any case, Alice Phil once said that she would die for me. The guilt on his face disappeared in an instant, and Wei Gong Qixi revealed a straightforward expression. Until now, he was still dreaming of borrowing the power of the Holy Grail to become the partner of justice. However, little did he know that Wei Gong Qixi's crazy mutterings had all fallen into Alice Phil's ears. Alice Phil, who was standing outside the door, pursed her lips. She was flabbergasted, as if she didn't expect Wei Gong Qixi to be so heartless. Alice Phil had once said that she was willing to die for Wei Gong Qixi, but the taste and essence of everything had changed. Stupid man, like a pig. Where there are people, there will be fighting, and when there is fighting, there will be darkness. When there is darkness, there is only one way to completely eradicate the darkness of this time and become the so-called partner of justice, to exterminate the human race. Glancing at Alice Phil, who was standing in front of Wei Gong Qixi's bedroom door with a complicated expression, Dustless couldn't help but feel emotional. When a person's material life was satisfied, there would be spiritual enjoyment, and inexplicable dreams would be born. For example, Wei Gong Qixi was like this. When he woke up from his dream, it was already too late. She would die no matter what. I want to end this war as soon as possible. At the same time, a cold voice suddenly came from the room. Lowering his head, he saw Wei Gong Qixi in his pajamas. Even though he tried his best to remain calm, and his cheeks regained some color, deep in his soul, he could still feel the exhaustion of his soul. Is this guy made of iron? He's so confident even though he's been turned into a eunuch. Dustless slandered in his heart. He did not say these words to Wei Gong Qixi. If he did not do it well, this guy would be hit hard again. Tomorrow, Dustless will fight with Ryder. As for Saber, she will stay behind to protect me and Alice Phil to prevent Yen Feng Chile and his archer from sneaking up on us. Time flew, and the next morning came in the blink of an eye. When Saber heard that they were going to fight the Conqueror King Iskandar, she requested to fight together with Dustless. However, she was rejected by Dustless. The reason made Saber speechless. She could only stare at him. Do you want to interfere with the battle between knights? It was because of such an inexplicable sentence that Saber sensibly stayed in the castle to protect Alice, Phil, and Gong Gong Qixi. Even though Dustless and Iskandar were not knights, it was still an unforgivable act to recklessly intervene in other people's duel. After thinking about it carefully, Saber also acquiesced to Dustless's idea. Alice Phil and Wei Gong Qixi really needed someone to stay behind and watch over them. This place should be enough. The thin figure stood on top of a majestic bridge. Dustless stared at the sea in the distance. This was the place where the first battle between the heroic spirits took place. Boom, boom, boom. Dustless stepped on the huge steel pipe of the bridge. Loud rumbling sounds were heard as the sound gradually spread to the entire city with the help of the sea breeze. This was a form of provocation. It meant, I'm right here. If you don't like it, come at me. At a remote location. The Conqueror King, who was eating with Wilbur Velvet, suddenly raised his head. When he heard the faint sound, he laughed with fighting spirit. "Did you hear the horn of battle? Someone is challenging me." Iskandar clenched his fists. His eyes were like torches, shining with a dazzling light. He said loudly, "As a king, it's ridiculous to avoid a battle." "Idiot, this could also be the sound of some construction site under construction," Wilbur Velvet refuted. "There's no construction site near your house. Moreover, the source of this sound is at least a few kilometers away. If some construction site is really under construction, do you think it's possible to travel so far?" Wilbur Velvet was silent. There was only one kind of person who could do such a thing: heroic spirits. Chapter 17:16. Rider, who is the person who issued us a challenge? Is it Archier or Saber? Or is it the eighth heroic spirit? That fellow is the most terrifying. I really don't wish to encounter him. When the eighth heroic spirit was mentioned, Wilbur Velvet's body trembled uncontrollably. He felt a chill down his spine and could not help but shiver. Ha ha ha. To me, it doesn't matter who it is. The Conquest King, who was riding the divine might wheel, let out a hearty laugh. He was fearless as he stared at the faint silhouettes on the bridge in the distance. His rough face was replaced by excitement. Don't you find it delightful to have a battle with heroic spirits from different eras? The Conquest King's face was filled with excitement as though he had been injected with chicken blood. He nearly jumped up and down. You. Forget it. I knew that this would be the outcome. In any case, it's up to you. Wilbur Velvet sighed and ignored the Conquest King. There was no need to talk nonsense with a battle maniac. To be honest, be it Archer, Saber, or the eighth heroic spirit, I don't have enough chances of victory. Especially the unfathomable eighth heroic spirit that you mentioned. That fellow's noble artifact is similar to Archer's, but its might and proficiency seems to be even more powerful than Archer's. The Conquest King was vexed. This was the first time he heard that a noble artifact could be used by two people. That fellow must have been sent by the heavens to deliberately go against us. Wilbur Velvet grumbled in frustration. He was filled with complaints about Dustless. This Holy Grail war was ridiculously strange. There had never been an eighth servant. Furthermore, the most unacceptable thing was that the sudden appearance of an eighth heroic spirit could be ignored. Furthermore, it was unbelievably strong. In a 1v1 situation, it was almost invincible. Didn't Toshiomi Inaka say that he wanted to join forces with us? Why didn't you agree to it in the past? Now that that fellow is dead, there's no one to join forces with. Wilbur Velvet's complaints were all directed at the Conquest King. Bang! However, the Conquest King gave him a slap and snapped, "Fool! There can only be one final victor. Sooner or later, there will be a time when we part ways." Is he here? The Conquest King sure made an arrogant entrance. However, it's not bad to prepare a funeral for you. After all, we were acquaintances. Looking up at the sky, Dustless had an unfathomable smile on his face. Looking up, one could see lightning flashing and thunder rumbling in the void. Dark clouds were rolling, and the cries of beasts resounded through the starry sky like heavenly thunder, spreading to the ends of the world. A majestic monarch descended like the ruler of the world. The activity coming out of the brain is really scary. Wherever the Conquest King's divine might wolf passed, lightning would streak across. Thick bolts of lightning boomed without restraint, as though they had the power to destroy the world. But, then, the smile on Dustless's face disappeared, and he muttered to himself, "Although flowers are pragmatic and the ending is a bit monotonous, I can still find some good fun. So it's you, the eighth heroic spirit." Boom boom boom. The Conquest King's divine might will landed on the ground, producing a loud rumble. It carved out a charred trench on the ground and stopped not far in front of Dustless. Give it your all, Conquest 5. This will be the final battle. Don't disappoint me with your performance. Dustless's hand flashed, and a golden greatsword instantly took shape. Ha ha ha. I couldn't ask for more. The Conquest King laughed out loud when he saw this. He glanced at Web Velvet, indicating for him to get off the carriage and leave. Web Velvet looked at the Conquest King worriedly. After hesitating for a moment, he tactfully left the divine might wheel. After all, he was just a burden. You won't attack this fellow, right? The Conquest King asked in a deep voice as he pointed at Web Velvet. Don't compare me to someone like Wei Gong Qixi. A master who kills his enemies. It's extremely comical. Only someone like Wei Gong Qixi who fears his enemies would be so despicable. Dustless snorted coldly in disdain. His words were filled with endless mockery and disdain. He scoffed at Wei Gong Qixi's methods. Assassinating the opponent's master and forcing Sarvant to surrender was Wei Gong Qixi's specialty. For example, in the original work, Lancer was tricked to death by Wei Gong Qixi. His master was captured, and in the end, Lancer was ordered to commit suicide. Before the battle begins, forgive me for speaking bluntly. I have one last question to ask you. If you remain silent, this king will not be able to die in peace. The Conquest King lowered his gaze and stared at Dustless. He did not dare underestimate that thin body of his. He asked in a deep voice, you seem to have more noble artifacts than Archer. That lightsaber in your hand should be at least A+ grade. My last question is. Who are you? The Conquest King could not hold back his curiosity and asked with anticipation. It was fine to lose, but if he died without knowing who killed him, it would be too tragic. This fellow doesn't know the meaning of curiosity killing the cat. Suddenly recalling a famous saying from his previous life, Dustless's gaze turned complicated. His thoughts turned in reverse. He had lived for hundreds of years, and the number of titles he had been given was too many. Conquest King, it's just a name. Is there a need to be so persistent? Even if you know, it's meaningless. Dustless muttered. It would be great if everyone could part on good terms. Asking for a name after death, how boring. Chapter 17:17. Meaningless. No. There's great significance. This question not only perplexed the Conquest King, but also left Sarvant and Master perplexed. Dustless's method of existence was too strange and evil. It was beyond everyone's understanding. Dustless clearly did not have any mana at his disposal, but his strength was so astounding that it made everyone's eyes pop. There were even some bored people who spent a lot of time rummaging through all the historical myths, but still could not find a hero that matched Dustless. For example, Yen Feng Kaylee and Tashimi had done so, but they could not find a powerful hero that matched Dustless's identity. Who exactly is this guy? Perhaps only the heavens know. Ryder's Conquest King Iskandar was not the only one who was puzzled. In fact, his master, Wilbur Velvet, was also deeply perplexed. Looking at all the myths in the world, there seemed to be no one with abilities comparable to Dustless. There was only Gilgamesh. Although he and Dustless could use the ability of the Gate of Babylon, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the so-called Gate of Babylon was actually just one of Dustless's many abilities. Is that so? Are you sure you want to know about my past? He glanced at Iskandar, the Conqueror King, in astonishment. His dustless and deep eyes were as terrifying as the abyss. He stared at the Conqueror King for a moment before he said calmly, Conqueror King, have you heard of the story of Pandora's box? Pandora's box. The Conquest King was stunned when he heard that. He immediately looked at Dustless in astonishment and frowned. Are you trying to say that you are also a monster in Pandora's box? You can understand it that way. Dustless nodded and immediately smiled. If you know about my long life, I'm worried that your combat power will decrease. In the past, when I fought with a god, she was in such a situation. Those who know about my past are unable to face me with their full strength. This guy, Wilbur Velvet's brows furrowed deeply when he heard that. A clear, chuaned character could not be concealed. This guy is as unfathomable as a god. Ha 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 ha. Is your past enough to scare others away? Interesting. The Conquest King laughed heartily when he heard this. Following that, he stared at Dustless and said, "That's what makes it interesting. I wish to know of your past even more. It's not just me. Everyone wishes to know of your past. The same goes for Archer. I've already vaguely guessed his identity, the ancient king of Uruk, Gilgamesh, known as the Hero King. What an untactful man." Dustless sighed helplessly and said casually, "I don't have a fixed title. In the past, I was revered as a god and feared as a devil. I destroyed countless worlds, killed countless gods, and created many worlds. If you don't mind, you can be my opponent, a moody and boring god." In the end, Dustless came to such a conclusion. Hee. God. I've long been aware of that. The Conquest King was not surprised when he heard that. Instead, the doubts in his heart were relieved. Just as he had said, when facing Dustless, the Conquest King had the resolve and determination to challenge a god. In fact, it was not just the Conquest King. The heroic spirits that had fought with Dustless all treated him as a super godlike monster. That's for the best. Since you aren't attacking, I'll just bully the weak. Dustless revealed a stern gaze. Seeing the Conquest King remain motionless as though he was preparing for something, Dustless took the initiative to transform into a flash of light and pounced at the Conquest King. In fact, the identity of a god was nothing much. For example, the Hero King of Archer, Gilgamesh, had 2/3 of a divinity. He was a heaven-defying existence that was half human and half god. However, compared to Dustless who had dominated countless eras, Gilgamesh was far inferior. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. In an instant, he appeared in front of the Conquest King. Shock flashed across his eyes as he cursed inwardly, "This guy's speed is as fast as teleportation. I can't see any trace of him at all." Even so, the Conquest King still waved his sword in front of him. "Your reflexes are not bad, but your speed is still too slow. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourselves for being too sad. The heavens have chosen me to participate in this war, and all of you heroic spirits are destined to be mere foils. Vanish, Conquest King." In the void, Dustless's soft sigh rang out. The light pierced through the Conquest King's body first. Poochie. The golden greatsword left a thick wound on the Conquest King's body. As Dustless used too much strength, he could even see the organs hidden in his body. Poochie. Having suffered an unprecedented injury, Iskandar spat out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned as pale as snow, and bean-sized beads of sweat uncontrollably rolled down his coarse face. Despicable guy. Looking down at Dustless who was much shorter than him, the Conquest King's face was filled with indignation as he said hoarsely, "You are indeed extraordinary. Just a single move was enough to heavily injure me, a king. Am I getting old? My reflexes have become so sluggish that I couldn't even catch your shadow." The Conquest King smiled bitterly. His face was filled with shame and indignation. He never expected Dustless to be so terrifying, especially with his speed. He couldn't even catch a trace of him, and by the time he realized it, he had already been heavily injured by Dustless. Relax and close your eyes. Your opponent is the flash person who ate the flash fruit. His body has turned into light, and he can unleash an absolute speed like light. Losing is inevitable. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.